That sound right there means you have now stepped inside of the cage with me, Joe Sumo, and we're going to be talking mixed martial arts for the next hour. If you have any questions for me, or if you feel like chiming in, you could always hit me up on Twitter at TheRealJoeSumo. That is at TheRealJoeSumo on Twitter. Hit me up with questions, opinions, whatever you got. Just let me know, and I'll share them on the air, and we'll even discuss it if I feel like it's worth discussing. But before that, or after that, shall I say, we've got a lot going on in mixed martial arts over the past week. First things first, I want to start off with my favorite fighter, apparently possibly coming out of retirement. Dana White has been caught in Boston saying that he has spoken to Nick Diaz. That's right, Stockton's own 209 badass Nick Diaz. And apparently he's offered Nick a fight. Now, it's not at 170, but he's actually given him a fight at 185 against Lyoto Machida. Now, I know what most of you are thinking. Lyoto Machida, that guy's fighting at 205, and Nick Diaz is fighting at 170. Well, apparently, now that Anderson Silva is no longer the belt holder at 185, Lyoto Machida is more than willing to go down to 185, where he doesn't believe he'll have a possibility to fight Anderson Silva. And going down there, he wants to fight somebody who's probably not going to be a wrestler or point fighter. Well, in comes Nick Diaz. Nick Diaz has been flirting with the idea of jumping in up to 185, but really feels comfortable at 170. But apparently he has taken to this idea of possibly fighting Lyoto Machida, has not given Dana White an answer yet, but he said, in typical Nick Diaz fashion, "I'll get back to you." I'm sure he has to talk it over with Cesar Gracie and the rest of the camp and see how this works for Nick Diaz, but I think it's an awesome idea, at least on paper. You get your traditional karate fighter versus kind of a traditional boxer in a weird sense, seeing that Nick Diaz is more of a jiu-jitsu guy, but his striking has grown leaps and bounds over the years. Either way, I think it's a phenomenal idea. If you end up having these two guys really going at it, you're going to get a real good just idea of what it's going to be like to see this karate counterpuncher versus a guy that comes forward and throws strikes the whole time. Really interested to see how something like that would probably play out. Personally, I'm a Nick Diaz fan. I'd love to see him bring the pressure and really cause Lyoto Machida to get into a type of scrap that, you know, happens during a Nick Diaz bout. What we don't know is if Lyoto Machida is going to just backpedal the whole time, find his shots, pick them, and run away, kind of via Carlos Condit in his style. It's going to be interesting to see what happens if that fight does go down, but me being a Nick Diaz fan, I just cannot wait for it. I'd love to see him come out of retirement, and I'd love to see him fight against somebody who's not going to try to wrestle him to the ground and do the points thing. Lyoto Machida, though, he is somewhat of a points fighter just because his style is so technical. I mean, he just picks his shots. He really doesn't waste a lot of energy. But still, he's really a striker at heart, and a striker versus striker, just two different martial arts. It's going to be a really compelling matchup. I hope it happens. I can't wait to hear what Nick Diaz has to say, and if he does take the bout, and how soon will it come. I'm very interested in that aspect. I hope it happens. But glad to see that Nick Diaz is talking about coming back to the cage. It's been a while, and we love seeing you in there flipping people off and talking trash. What else is going on in MMA news? Eddie Alvarez. He's back. And apparently he's got himself a fight contract, and it's not with the UFC. After almost a year of litigation and legal issues with Bellator and his contract situation with them, it seems that Eddie Alvarez is going back to Bellator. Now, I know this sounds interesting, and for anybody who has been following the situation, you're probably just as confused as I am, or at least that I was. After reading the situation, apparently legally, Bellator had the right to match any offer given by any other company. And the UFC initially had offered Eddie Alvarez, I believe, around a six-figure signing bonus, somewhere around $250,000, $300,000, as well as pay-per-view buys for any of his fights. And that's a huge deal. But I guess, from what I've heard, this offer was matched. Bellator wanted to keep him around, and they did. And after going through all the legal process, apparently if Eddie Alvarez wants to fight that and take it any further, he's going to have to wait another year before he can even get into the courts and have it seen before a judge. So I believe this was settled outside of that situation, because if that was the case, they wouldn't be able to get in there until about September of 2014, which is quite a ways away. And I know the guy wants to fight. He wants to make money. Last time I seen him in an interview, he had to sell his home to get some extra scratch. So it's unfortunate, but it's good to see that he's going to be coming back inside the cage. And get this, folks, his first fight back in the cage is going to be a rematch against none other than Michael Chandler, the gentleman who stole, or shall I say, won Eddie Alvarez's belt in their fight last year, which was easily Fight of the Year candidate. It was a brilliant fight. Both guys are just warriors. They went at it. It was intense from the get-go. Eddie Alvarez ends up losing by submission in the 4th round to Michael Chandler. And after that, he wins a couple more fights, but then goes through this whole litigation process. But apparently now that he's signed back up, they're going to give him an automatic rematch against Michael Chandler, and they're putting it on their pay-per-view card. That's right. Bellator's first pay-per-view card this November, headlined by Tito Ortiz and Quentin Rampage Jackson, is also going to have Michael Chandler defending his belt against Eddie Alvarez. Personally, I think Michael Chandler versus Eddie Alvarez has to be the headline fight. 1, it's a title fight. And 2, both these guys are in their prime. 3, both of them will put on a way more exciting show than anything Tito Ortiz and Rampage Jackson can put together right now. I just don't, it doesn't make sense to me, but I kind of get it. You know, Tito Ortiz and Rampage Jackson, they're the names. They're the ones that people can see on a poster or on the internet and be like, oh my God, you know, Rampage versus the Huntington Beach Bad Boy. Their names are known. They've built some sort of a legacy. They're Hall of Famers in their right. Michael Chandler and Eddie Alvarez are still young, relatively unknown for people that are just casual MMA fans. So it makes sense, but for those people who do follow Bellator and who do follow mixed martial arts, know that easily Michael Chandler versus Eddie Alvarez is the main event of that fight. It's a rematch of a Fight of the Year fight that it's got war written all over it. These two guys are going to go at it. Eddie Alvarez believes he deserved to win the first fight. He thinks he knows what he did wrong. He's ready to scrap. Michael Chandler, on the other hand, has looked like a champion since getting the belt, defending it with ease. I think it's the perfect bout, and I'm really happy to see Eddie Alvarez back. I was really sad to see him have to go through all of this legal process. It would have been nice to see him in the UFC, but to be personally honest, at 155, the UFC is already stacked in that division. They really don't need to clutter it up with one more guy. I like that Eddie Alvarez is back in Bellator. Bellator needs to bolster up the roster, especially if they're going to try to do this pay-per-view thing, and Eddie Alvarez is the right guy to have in there. Him and Michael Chandler could really kind of, take that promotion and keep pushing it to the next level with names like Eddie Alvarez and Michael Chandler. So I'm happy that he's there. I'm happy that he gets to fight for the title, whether win or lose. I think this is the place for him. This is his home. Hopefully they take care of him the way he deserves. I really hope there's no bad blood after the legal issue, because Eddie Alvarez is a great fighter. He deserves to be treated like one. And, that's my personal opinion on the situation. I hope it all works out. Can't wait to see the fight coming in November. It'll be on Bellator's first pay-per-view card, headlined by Tito Ortiz and Quentin Rampage Jackson. And I've already spoke countless minutes on Tito Ortiz and Rampage Jackson fighting. Ugh. Anyways, what else do we have going on in mixed martial arts news? Mauricio Shogun Hua. That's right. We're going to talk about the Shogun. He's fighting this Saturday, and he's fighting against Chael Sonnen, headlining the Fox Sports 1 card, which we will get into more later. But before then, I wanted to bring up the fact that he's training obviously, for his fight against Chael Sonnen, but not with a wrestler to defend takedowns. He's training with Freddie Roach. That's right, the boxing guru, Manny Pacquiao's coach. He's training with him, getting his striking up. Apparently, Freddie Roach has been saying that Shogun has pillow hands or lady hands, punches like a girl, something of that nature. And I guess Shogun's posturing, his pivoting was all wrong. He wasn't doing it right. He wasn't striking correctly. And Freddie Roach saw it, took him under his wing, and helped him improve his striking for his fight against Chael Sonnen. I find that very interesting. First, because Shogun has always had knockout power. I won't say he was ever the most technical striker. Easily he was not. He could always learn something, but it's not like he was lacking in the striking department. If anything, in a fight against Chael Sonnen, I have to believe you're game planning for a wrestler. You should know what Chael Sonnen's going to do, and you should be training to stop it. My personal opinion. Maybe what Shogun's thinking is that I'm the bigger guy, and if I know how to strike correctly, I should be able to knock him out and win this fight early. But Chael Sonnen is the grittiest, or one of the grittiest guys in mixed martial arts. You know what he's going to do. You know how he's going to do it, yet most people cannot stop it. Ask Anderson Silva. Even though Anderson Silva won his 2 fights against Chael Sonnen, we all know that Anderson Silva was getting his ass whipped for 4.5 rounds in the first fight and lost his first round against Chael Sonnen in the second fight. Anyways, we all know Chael Sonnen's going for the takedown, and if Shogun has not been training heavily on that part of his arsenal, I don't see him beating Chael Sonnen, not with striking that he learned from Freddie Roach. Especially once you get put on your back and get punched in the face a few times, all that stand-up combinations that Freddie Roach taught you is out the window. Personal opinion, once again, I'm not a fighter. I don't practice striking. But it's just hard for me to believe that he thinks that just striking is going to win this fight. I mean, obviously, that sounds naive on my point. He has to be practicing other things and training other things in his camp than just striking. I'm sure he is. I mean, Shogun has a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu background, so it's not like he's just a striker. But I hope that going up against Chael Sonnen in a headline fight that he has prepared himself for takedowns. He better be ready to stuff him. He better be ready to get out of bad positions, because these are all the things that Chael Sonnen is going to attempt to do to him. And I will talk more about that later with my co-host Mike Finch when he gets on the air. But I just want to give my personal opinion about that one. Shogun, it's cool to see you training with Freddie Roach. Freddie Roach is a great trainer. I mean, if you're going to go to striking, he is the guy to do it with. But I would probably have gone to Matt Hughes or go train with Chuck Liddell, who has incredible takedown defenses, or just somebody with a wrestling background who's going to be able to help you learn how to get in and out of bad situations. Talking about Chael Sonnen, we'll stay on that topic for a second. Chael Sonnen thinking already past his fight with Shogun Rua, but he's not thinking about fighting somebody. He's thinking about refereeing. I'll get back to that one after a quick break. This is Joe Sumo, and you have stepped inside the cage.
I don't want to be young, but I don't want to die. I can whisper in the wind. We can smoke out every night.
Radio DePaul is
awesome,
engaging,
ballin',
an opportunity for me to voice my opinion.
really cool, really laid back.
a big community of everything.
Radio DePaul is Chicago's college connection.
And then I brought her into Red Mango last week to try it out, and now she won't shut up about it. She wants to go there every day. I should be getting really annoyed with her by now, except the yogurt is so good.
On the berries, and then we can put like a layer.
With their wide variety of all-natural frozen yogurt, over 55 toppings to choose from, your Red Mango options are endless.
You can put on top too.
So stop by the Lincoln Park Red Mango at 844 West Armitage, just east of the Armitage Brown Line station. It probably won't be your last visit.
And then maybe we'll have...
And we're back. Joe Sumo, your host, and you're inside the cage. Now, before we took a quick break, we were talking about Chael P. Sonnen, the what's he call himself, the Oregon gangster, some crazy shit like that. Anyways, yeah, he's talking, and of course we all listen. Chael Sonnen already thinking past this fight with Shogun Rua, but like I said, he's not thinking about fighting another opponent. He's thinking about reffing two opponents. One of them he has quite the history with. Chael Sonnen out there saying that he wants to be the referee for the Chris Weidman Anderson Silva rematch. I smile, and if you see me on camera, I have to smile because I find it hilarious. Chael Sonnen is quite the personality. I mean, the guy is all over the place. He's already doing commentary on Fox Sports for the UFC. You know, he's quite the hype man for fights. He's also a fighter. And now he wants to be a ref. First of all, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility at all. I think if anybody could referee, it's probably Chael Sonnen. He's been in enough mixed martial arts fights to understand the game, understand the point system. He's been inside a cage plenty of times. He understands the dimensions he's working within. I think Chael Sonnen could be a referee. Do I think he should be a referee for a fight against, for a fight that has a gentleman he has plenty of history with? Not so much, especially because Chris Weidman is a wrestler, who Chael Sonnen also is. I find that to be an automatic distinct advantage for Chael Sonnen. I mean, for Chris Weidman, if Chris Weidman were to get it to the ground. A referee who is inclined to enjoy the wrestling aspect of mixed martial arts might be less inclined to separate them if there's a stall in combat because somebody has the better position due to a takedown or a single leg. Or maybe he wants to see Anderson Silva on his back more because Anderson Silva beat him twice. Either way, I find it to be hilarious. I don't think it's going to happen at all. I don't think he'll be sanctioned in time. But it's kind of cool to hear him say that, and it's cool to even think about that as a possibility. You know, Chael Sonnen thinking that he can be a referee for a mixed martial arts match. It'd be cool, but it's not happening, especially not that fight. Give him like an undercard first. Let's see what he can really do. And if he's a good referee for an undercard bout, maybe let him get into a main card and then maybe a main event. But right now, there's no way that guy is refereeing the rematch between Chris Weidman and Anderson Silva. Shenanigans, Chael Sonnen. I call pure shenanigans on you, good sir. What else is going on out there? Conor McGregor. If nobody knows who he is fighting this Saturday on the UFC on Fox Sports 1 card. And most people are like, so who is he? Yeah, most people don't know who he is, but Conor McGregor is a young, up-and-coming fighter with only one fight in the UFC. Well, how can a guy with only one fight in the UFC be young and up-and-coming? Well, he's taken a little bit out of the Chael Sonnen hype book and talks a lot of trash before his fights. But if anybody has seen his first fight in the UFC, it's worth talking because the guy is solid. His striking, his physique, his stamina, all in place. And though he wasn't really tested the way you'd think he should have been tested in his first fight, Conor McGregor is a beast. And he's out there, you know, talking up a good game about what kind of style he has and how he's going to be stealing the main fights, stealing the show. And he possibly could. The guy is an animal. He's really a stylish fighter. You got to enjoy him. Plus, he's got that foreign accent. You know, he's the Irishman who talks hilariously when you hear him speak. But he's a solid fighter. And as I sit here and I look at his background, even though he's only got one fight in the UFC, he's 13-2 in his mixed martial arts career. He had been a champion in the Cage Warriors Fighting Championship for a couple years now until he came into the UFC and actually held on to the belt for 4 fights. So, you know, Conor McGregor is no joke. In his first fight in the UFC, he won in a minute. 1 minute is all it took for him to knock out Marcus Brimage, who is also not a slouch. Marcus Brimage has had fights under his belt. He is somewhat of a stud. Before his loss to Conor McGregor, he was 6-1. Conor McGregor. So the Conor McGregor is a name to look out for. He's definitely hyped himself up a lot. He's in favor with Dana White. Dana White loves this kid. He thinks he's got the moxie to be a superstar. He's also got the hands, but he also has a tough fight ahead of him this weekend, as he's going to be fighting against Max Holloway, who is 7-2 and also somewhat of a UFC staple. He's got a few fights under his belt in the cage, or in the octagon, you should say. So it'll be a good test. I don't think it'll be a big enough test, but I won't even get into it because, like I said, we'll be going more into this Fox Sports 1 card a little bit later. What else is going on in mixed martial arts news? We have Uriah Hall and Josh Howard. That's his name, Josh Howard. They're going to be fighting this weekend too, and both of them, not really talking smack, but certainly giving their opinions on one another. And John Howard, I meant to say, is going out on a limb and saying that Uriah Hall, he believes, is overrated. I find it funny that a guy who couldn't make it in the UFC, I believe he went 3-3, which I don't think is enough to get cut, especially if you're an entertaining fighter, but cut nonetheless. I don't think you should be talking trash about a guy who has just got done knocking out 3 out of his last 4 opponents, 4 out of his last 5, something of that nature. And Uriah Hall, though he did lose the Ultimate Fighter championship fight for the big contract, he did it against a really talented kid and a really talented wrestler. John Howard is not a talented wrestler. John Howard likes to bang, and those are the kind of guys that Uriah Hall has the easier time with. Do I think he's going to have an easy time with John Howard? Not really. But I don't think you should go out and talk about somebody unless you're ready to deal with, the repercussions. And Uriah Hall really hasn't said much about Howard except that he respects his power. But, you don't really get much trash talk out of Uriah Hall. If you watch The Ultimate Fighter, he's not going to talk too much trash. He's kind of an introvert in a weird sense, but a very scary fighter in the cage. I find this fight to be very interesting, and I don't know who is going to win. At least I have an opinion on it, but we'll get to that one later. What else is going on in mixed martial arts news? Who's on the potential cut list for the UFC after the fight this weekend? Well, they say Michael Johnson is on the cut list. And personally, I like Michael Johnson as a fighter. I don't think he should be on the cut list just because he is an entertaining fighter. He brings it every single time. Though his record in the cage may not be the most beautiful, there's a lot of guys that the UFC have kept around that don't have great records in the cage. I don't think it's about how good your record is. I think it's about how you approach each fight. What do you do when you're inside there? Are you talented? Are you able to get out of bad situations? Are you able to put on entertaining fights, win or lose? And Michael Johnson is one of those guys who does. I don't think he deserves to be put on this possible cut list, but I understand it. If you're not winning, you got to make room for new talent who could possibly step in and fight for a title. John Howard, even though he just came back to the UFC, he's also on that cut list. And John Howard, I kind of get it. You know what? You're given a shot. I don't even believe he was going to be coming back to the UFC unless this fight was in Boston, which is his hometown. But because it's in Boston, and I know John Howard campaigned for it, I know John Howard also had a nice winning streak going outside of the UFC and the lower promotions. I mean, it makes sense. It's his hometown. He's going to bring people to the stadium. They're going to be rooting for him. He is an entertaining fighter. I don't want him to get cut, but I do see if he loses, let's say, a unanimous decision where Uriah Hall just dominates him for 3 rounds, or if Uriah Hall knocks him out quickly, I can see John Howard getting cut right away. It's just they cut him quickly last time. I don't see any reason why they wouldn't do it again, especially if he doesn't put up a fight against Uriah Hall. So I hope John Howard, goes to war with Uriah, puts on an entertaining fight, win or lose, and hopefully earns himself a few more fights in the UFC, because I like John Howard. I like the way he fights. I like his personality. I like his just overall demeanor, just the aura around him. He seems like a good guy, seems like a great fighter. Hopefully he's been training more on his ground game and his wrestling, because that's kind of what got him cut from the UFC when he lost to, I want to say, Thiago Alves, maybe? I think Thiago Alves was his last fight in the UFC. He was getting stuffed with a lot of takedowns, kind of just smothered and beat up. Also, let's see, who else might be on the cut list? Well, these guys aren't really, but they're talking about Manny Gambarian, Cole Miller. Look, Manny Gambarian is like, first of all, he's hilarious to me in the sense that he's like this little dude built like a pit bull, and he just talks the biggest shit, and it's just like he's calm about it. It's not like he's like a jerk. He's not out there like, oh yeah, this about your mother, or you or this or you or that. He's just like, I'm gonna whip your ass and I'm gonna fight and I'm tough, and he really is. He's a tough little dude. He's scrappy as heck. He's trains with Ronda Rousey, so he knows his arm bars. And he's a tough fighter. I don't know why he'd possibly be on the cut list. I'd have to look at his record, because I think Manny Gambarian doesn't deserve to be on a cut list right now. Let's go ahead and take a look real quick. What's Manny Gambarian done lately? I know he won his last fight. If you win your last fight, you shouldn't be getting cut. Yeah, he lost 3 in a row and then won his last fight. So, okay, I kind of see. If he loses again, he's going to have 4 out of his last 5 fights as losses. I get that. He should probably really work for a victory in this fight. But he is fighting against Cole Miller, another guy who's also on the chopping block. And Cole Miller, he won his last fight, but he's gone 2 out of his last 5. And he's been losing these decision fights. Those things tend to be boring in the eyes of both the fans and Dana White. And when that happens, Dana White's quick on cutting people. So I think the perfect situation, or at least the perfect outcome for this fight, is these dudes just steal the show. I'm talking fight of the night. They just beat the heck out of each other. Both prove that they deserve to be in the UFC. So no matter who the loser might be, I think they really just put their heart on the line and show that they want to be here. Dana White usually rewards guys when they do that. And these guys aren't the type of guys to back down in fights. They're going to go out there and they're going to scrap. And if they do that, I don't see neither one of them getting cut, whoever wins or whoever loses. So I hope that's the situation, because I don't want to see either one of them go. I love me some Cole Miller, and I love me some Manny Gambarian. Both of those dudes, love their attitudes. I just like the way they fight. They're just good personalities for the sport. They don't deserve to be cut. And Cole Miller's legit because he rocks on the UG. He even throws up the UG sign before his fights. And if you don't know about the UG, that's the underground. You can get on that website. That's for all you mixed martial arts enthusiasts out there, all you fans. Go over to the UG and check out what's going on in mixed martial arts news, because that's my spot, and that should be your spot too. Anyways, if you have any questions for me, once again, you can hit me up on Twitter at @TheRealJoeSumo. That is at @TheRealJoeSumo. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to have my buddy, co-commentator, and just overall MMA genius, Mike Finch. And we're going to talk the amateur scene. We're going to talk the pro scene. We're going to talk life. We're going to just talk about what goes on inside the cage with me, Joe Sumo. We'll be back.
Radio DePaul is
awesome,
engaging,
Ballin'.
an opportunity for me to voice my opinion.
Really cool, really laid back.
a big community of everything.
Radio DePaul is Chicago's college connection.
That's the sound of your classmate receiving an attachment of you posing in your underwear. Your ex-boyfriend forwarding the picture to his friends. It being sent to your coach. And worst of all, your dad. All because of the time you posted those pictures on your profile. Anything you post online, anyone can see. So think before you post. For more information, visit www.cybertipline.com.
Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Justice, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, and the Ad Council.
I don't recycle. I mean, we can just find another planet for your kids to live on, you know?
Noted non-recycler Tommy Crenshaw talks about the future.
Oh, I can totally see finding another planet that can support life when ours fills up with trash.
Log on to YouGottaBeKidding.org and learn about all the ways you can recycle, unless you're into lame excuses like Tommy's.
Hey, recycling's just not my thing. Starting over on a new planet? Now that's exciting.
Don't be that guy, unless you want people looking at you funny. Log on to YouGottaBeKidding.org.
Yeah, buddy. I'm your host, Joe Sumo, and you are back inside of the cage. Right now, I have with me a training partner of mine over at Energy MMA Gym. He's also a journalist. He's also a commentator. Really kind of just a jack of all trades in mixed martial arts. A good friend of mine, Mike Finch. Mike Finch, what's going on, buddy?
Hey, Joey. How's it going?
Good, man. Just, enjoying spreading the love of mixed martial arts to the masses out there, and just talking MMA. We were going over, the cut list for guys who might possibly get cut this coming UFC on Fox Sports 1 card. And I'm pretty sure you've been looking over it, but what do you think about the possibility of guys like Cole Miller, Manny Gambarian, Michael Johnson possibly getting cut from the UFC, man?
Yeah, Michael Johnson's in a tough spot right now. He's coming off of 2 losses, I want to say. And yeah, I mean, as far as the other guys, of course, everybody's. I mean, even when you go all the way up into the higher up fights, Chael's in a weird spot. If he were to lose to Shogun, he'd probably be more on the verge of retirement, though, if he did. So, there's a lot of guys on this card who are facing that problem.
Yeah, I find it interesting. You did say Chael Sonnen. I mean, even Shogun's been looking a little older, over the hill. I mean, if he were to get embarrassed by Chael Sonnen in this fight, like let's say just taken down and beaten up for 3 rounds, I wouldn't say he's on the chopping block because it is Mauricio Shogun, who it's hard to cut a guy like that. But I could see Dana White publicly saying maybe this guy should retire.
Exactly. Yeah, it kind of boils down to the same thing that Frank Mir versus Josh Barnett does in Milwaukee here coming up. It's these guys who are these big names who are you could even call them legends, who are in this weird spot because they're getting a little older and they probably fought for different titles or had big time fights and just kind of coming off of a loss or 2, and it puts them in a weird spot. It always does. It's always this weird place between retirement or if they do get cut like Tito Ortiz did, now he's having another big fight somewhere else, and they get put in this weird position, and I definitely think that's the Shogun-Mauricio fight, that the winner can move up to something good. Still, not necessarily out of the woods when you're the age of those two, but the loser they could easily retire Saturday.
Certainly, I agree. They're definitely in peculiar situations. Talking about fighters who might be in peculiar situations, I was talking earlier about this, but apparently Dana White has offered Nick Diaz a chance to fight at 185 against Lyoto Machida. Mm-hmm. Have you heard about this, and what do you think?
Yeah. Who just tagged me in that? I saw that last night. Yeah, that's a crazy fight. I just think that at 185 there are a lot of matchups for Nick, and I think it's odd to have a welterweight natural, like a guy who just was competing at welterweight fight a guy who was just competing at light heavyweight.
Right.
It would seem that the size difference is massive there, but I mean, Nick fills into middleweight fine. I like seeing Nick Diaz fight at middleweight, and I always thought that Lyoto wasn't that big of a 205er. So it's certainly a matchup. One of those things that you just never kind of thought happening.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I like that fight. I think it would be pretty cool. Nick's your guy. Do you like that fight?
You know what? I like it just because I like Nick Diaz. I think he's going to pressure Lyoto Machida as much as possible. What I'm worried is that Lyoto will get on his bike, kind of like Carlos Condit, kind of pick his shots. And Lyoto Machida, granted, he's really good at picking his shots, so I could see Lyoto Machida winning a points match, really boring in a situation where it'll be Nick Diaz hands up, kind of taunting him, but not getting him to engage, and that's what would worry me. But as far as size difference goes, I just always think back to Lyoto Machida versus BJ Penn, and I'm like, if BJ Penn can step up and fight Lyoto Machida, I'm pretty sure Nick Diaz can do it. So
yeah, he's one of those guys, you know. He's one of those guys who can. Yeah, and I can completely see what you're saying about that. That's what other people were worried about the entertainment of that fight. But I don't know. I just feel like you put those two in there, so it'll work out. I mean, with Nick taunting, at least it'll be a little entertaining. A whole lot didn't happen in the Nick Diaz GSP fight. You know, when you get on a high level, sometimes that happens with Nick. You know, it really depends on what Nick Diaz shows up to me too. You know.
Certainly. I agree. It's an interesting style matchup. You know, this karate versus boxer type thing, but. We'll see. It's not even set in stone yet, but if it does happen, I'm certainly interested just because I do like both fighters. Even though I'm more of the Nick Diaz fan, I would like to just see how that kind of fight turns out. But
sure.
Besides that, what's going on, man? How's life treating you?
Everything's good. I don't know if the listeners know, but me and you just did commentary on a show a couple weeks ago, and I keep trying to push that. Commentary is fun. You know, you certainly enjoyed yourself doing it, didn't you?
Oh, it was a great time, man. And I've been telling the people out there, last week I was on air, I let them know that you and I have been doing commentary, and I mean, it's fun. Personally, I enjoy, first of all, being that close to the cage and being able to give that analytical standpoint on the fights and kind of just give that play-by-play for the people that are listening. It's fun. It's a good time.
Yeah, and it's cool, especially your first couple times. People don't know how much different it is to see a fight right there on the cage. Like, you couldn't buy a seat that close if you went to a UFC event. We are literally on the cage, and so when you can hear them breathing in there and working, it's kind of a different experience. And I mean, I've done it a few times now because I work for MMA Recap, and I always used to write play-by-play. I would type it on a laptop. And I still do it, sitting there by the cage. So I'm very used to it, but it's always fun to bring somebody else because they're always commenting on what a different experience it is than seeing it on TV, you know?
Yeah, certainly. And it 100% is. I mean, I've never personally been in that position except for the couple times that you and I have commentated. And when you're right there, you're right. You just kind of see it from a different aspect versus somebody who's further away or possibly watching a fight on TV. I mean, when you're up front and you can kind of hear the punches as they connect or the kicks as they land, the takedowns when they hit the cage, it gives you a different appreciation for what they're going through and really what you're watching.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and luckily for us, we got to call a big fight. Rolly Baguisa's a kid we train with, or I train with currently, that Joey has trained with before. Rolly Baguisa scored a big knockout, and it went viral. I mean, it was on BJPenn.com. It was everywhere, and so was our commentary, in effect, you know. So
yeah.
We're getting our names out there.
You know that video's got about 15,000 views on YouTube right now.
Is that right? And that's funny because actually that's not the BJ Penn crowd either because they downloaded it and they put it on their site.
Yeah.
So when somebody views it on their site, it doesn't give the YouTube video a view. So you know,
really?
You think about the total views. Yeah, I think you think about the total views. BJPenn.com probably has thousands and thousands just by itself. You know.
That's beautiful. I mean, congratulations to him. I mean, how exciting can that be for him? First of all, young kid gets his first fight. He gets his first MMA fight, and he just goes out there and puts on such a nasty knockout of the night performance that it's all over the internet.
Yeah, and it's interesting to see how he handles it. I teach jiu-jitsu classes in the morning at Energy MMA, and he's been back in there, man. He's not taking any time off. You know, he's right back in, waking up 8 o'clock in the mornings of class. I'm sure some other kids would have other things to do. Rolly's right in there, and he's taking another fight here in September. So, you know, the kid's a fighter, and he loves what he's doing.
Now, talking about teaching, how long have you been doing that over at Energy, and do you enjoy the teaching aspect of jiu-jitsu more than the learning, or is it just kind of a trade-off?
I've been coaching, having my class at a certain time and everything at Energy for maybe 3 months now. Not that long, 3.5 months. But I've been filling in for Justin on days he hasn't been there for the past year and a half or so. And yeah, no, I love teaching. It's completely different. I've taught a few times before, so when I started my class, I kind of already had an idea. But teaching a martial art actually helps you when you train it. And so, like, as I teach different techniques, it kind of has me mentally walk through the steps. And so then when I go to grapple, I feel like I am improved because I have just taught the technique all morning. And I definitely noticed changes in my game, too. It's definitely – I felt like I was starting to kind of top out at a certain point, maybe that I wasn't getting better for a few months. And once I started teaching, I really felt like I kind of turned a corner there and kept going. I really like it. I do it 3 days a week, and I might even actually have more classes now. So, no, I want to continue to teach and train, and I have fun in both.
Now, for people that are listening, if they are interested in possibly learning jiu-jitsu from you, what days are you training? Where are you doing it at if people want to come by and check it out?
Yeah, we're Energy MMA in Lakemore, Illinois, in McHenry, and I teach the morning jiu-jitsu classes. So a lot of times people before work they'll come in, or if they have summer right now, like Rolly, he's been coming in all summer. So I teach at 8:00 on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Energy has classes. Our main MMA classes are at night, though. They're the 7:00 classes, and I fill in when Justin can't come in sometimes. No, I would definitely say people to check out the MMA program at Energy. I believe the website is energysportfitness.com, but it's probably just best to look them up on Facebook, Energy MMA. And, yeah, I mean, our gym's been growing. Our amateur team is, I think, 10-3 now, and we're going to continue competing. They're going to be on the XFO card here coming up in September. And so the gym is growing. It's a fun time. I mean, I've been at the gym for a little over 2 years now, and, I mean, what we've done in those 2 years, starting from just one fighter in Michael Hayden to our entire fight team now, it's been fun to watch.
Certainly, yeah. I remember when I first walked into that gym, it was literally no more than a handful of people in that jiu-jitsu class, and before I injured myself, I remember after Mike Hayden's first fight, and I walked into the class that next Monday, the place was packed. There was like 18, 20 people in that jiu-jitsu class. And I was like, are you kidding me right now? This is insane. It's cool. Yeah. It's really cool to see. And off the topic, but on the topic, how about Justin's Naga fight? I saw that he got first place in expert division. Props to the coach, jiu-jitsu coach and Muay Thai coach over at Energy MMA, Justin Hamilton. Really good guy, really brilliant striker and jiu-jitsu practitioner. He had a chance to prove it at Naga over the weekend.
Yeah. Justin's Justin's all about his ankle lock game, and luckily at Naga, all of those techniques are legal. So sometimes you go to grappling tournaments, they don't allow like twisting footlocks, or they don't allow heel hooks. Luckily at Naga they do, and that helps Justin's game out. Every time he kind of initiates those situations, and he does an awesome job at it. Last time he took second in the expert division. This time he showed up a little late because they were a little lower on population overall in this one. There weren't quite as many people competing in the tournament, and so his division was up sooner. So when he got there, he didn't have really any time to warm up, and so they actually didn't have anybody in his division. So they had to bump Justin up, who weighs like, I don't know, maybe 145 pounds. They bumped him up to the 160-pound division to compete. And so it's actually 159.9. So he had to go compete with guys who were bigger than him and still went through the tournament. And then in the final match, finished, it was almost a flying ankle lock. It was a straight ankle lock. He latched it up from the feet and got the tap. I got the tap in the final. So it's the first belt that we've had at Energy MMA. So it's a pretty big deal, and it's awesome that it's the coach.
Yes, certainly. Congratulations to him. I watched the fights on Facebook and or the grappling competition on Facebook. I saw his semifinals and his championship one, and it's really awesome to watch and see him do his thing, especially when you learn from him for so long and you see him teach it, but then actually see him perform it in a competitive sense. It's a whole nother aspect, and it was really cool to watch. We're going to take a quick break. When we come right back, we're going to talk a little bit more about this amateur scene, and then we're going to get into the fights this weekend. The first UFC on Fox Sports 1 fight card. It's me, Joe Sumo, with my co-host Mike Finch, and you're here on The Cage.
Radio DePaul is
awesome,
engaging, ballin', an opportunity for me to voice my opinion,
really cool, really laid back,
a big community of everything.
Radio DePaul is Chicago's college connection.
There's nothing like Chicago staples, deep dish pizza, the Crosstown Classic, and my favorite, sandwiches. Costello's has been serving Chicago since 1997. With locations in 4 Chicago neighborhoods, wide delivery zones, and ordering online, there's no reason not to indulge. Come to Costello's for sandwiches, fresh salads, and hot and cold sides, including their famous Chipotle mac and cheese. And did I mention their 2 new stores near DePaul at 2235 North Lincoln and in Wrigleyville at 3349 North Sheffield? So come on into Costello's for a classic taste of Chicago.
Yeah, buddy. We're back inside the cage. I'm your host, Joe Sumo. I'm here with my co-host today, Mike Finch. And we just got done talking about what's going on over at Energy MMA, the gym out in Lakemore, where both Mike Finch trains and coaches at. And also possibly fighting anytime soon. What's going on with that, Mike?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I'm a little fat. I can't be fat when I fight. I'm like 191, I want to say. And, I mean, I wouldn't hate competing at 185, but I really do need to get down to 170, you know, to properly compete. There's a bee in my car. This is uncomfortable. I'm sorry. I didn't want to stutter because there's a bee in here. Okay, so I want to fight in November, hopefully. I got to talk to the team, and we're going to figure something out. But I think I would like to compete this winter. Really, the goal for me is to win an amateur title. I'm not going to end up turning pro, I don't think. I think I like talking about fighting more than I like all the hard training and everything. But,
Certainly.
You know, the hard training has been worth it, man. I'm 3-0, and it's been a really fun ride. I mean, just through these 3 fights, you know, my first fight was when I was 18, and I feel like I've grown each one, and I feel like the next one here, I'm going to feel the same way. I'm going to feel like a different athlete in the cage. And so I can't wait. I mean, it'll be sometime this winter, and when I feel like I'm ready and in shape and the fight's right, I'll go ahead and do it and make the announcement.
Okay, so you have nothing set in stone, but I know that you have a few training partners who have some things set in stone. Like you said, they're going to be fighting on this XFO fight card coming up in September. How many guys from the gym are fighting, and can you name them off if you know which ones are?
Yeah, I know that Mike Hayden's fighting. Mike Hayden's 2-1. Tyler Dempsey's fighting. Tyler Dempsey is 2-0. I know that Rolly Beguis is fighting. Rolly Beguis is 1-0, and I know that John Quinlan is fighting as well. And John Quinlan is now 2-0. So that's a solid team. There could potentially be a 5th, but I wouldn't want to say anybody who's not fighting. So I know that they are, and they're Dan Lardy, who's the XFO's promoter. He's looking for opponents for them right now. And Dominic Asper, tough guys. You know, they're some of Energy MMA's best, obviously, with their records and if you've seen their performances, they're all excellent athletes. You know, and so this training camp really will be kind of like an all-star training camp at the gym, which sounds funny, all being amateurs, but really, I mean, they're the kind of the biggest name at Energy, and so and I feel like that's what Dominic's trying to do. He's trying to Dominic Pantaleo, by the way, is another coach at the gym, and I feel like Dominic's trying to put them up to kind of represent Energy in a different organization. It's the first time that Energy MMA has competed in the XFO, so he's kind of trying to put his best foot forward. And the show's not too far away. It's September 21st, I want to say, at the Sears Center. So it'll be pretty cool for guys to fight at the Sears Center. I mean, that's where I saw Fedor fight Dan Henderson. You know, it's a cool venue to fight at. So the guys are excited.
Yeah, it's a huge step up, and it's pretty soon compared to when a lot of these guys last fight. Well, at least Jonathan Quinlan and Rolly Beguisa, because they just fought a few weeks ago. So this is kind of a quick turnaround for them, which actually probably isn't that bad, seeing that neither one of them really took much damage in their fights. It's not like they're recovering from injuries. So it's interesting to see that turnaround so quickly from them. And then you got guys like Tyler and Mike who haven't fought in a while, but they are definitely very strong amateur fighters. I mean, they've kind of proven themselves in the scene, at least in that area of Illinois, through the Hidden Talent promotions and other promotions in the area. So it's cool to see him get a step up to the XFO promotion, which is, I mean, it's still considered amateur, but it's kind of like your upper echelon of amateur fighters in the area anyways.
Yeah, no, more gyms to compete against. I think there are other amateur shows do really well, and I like the amateur competitions going on, and a lot of people have good ideas for amateur shows, but the longest running amateur show and the one that people really know, I mean, if you look at the names that have fought in the XFO and then gone on, there's a list. Clay Guida used to be the XFO champion.
Yep.
And so, there are a lot of guys who have come out of the XFO, and also a lot of talent who, even Jens Pulver a couple of years ago fought in the XFO, one of the Pro-Am cards. The XFO is a well-known organization. I was actually playing the UFC video game, and it read somebody's stat that they were an XFO champion.
That's awesome.
Hidden Talent doesn't quite have that spotlight yet. But, I mean, I like the amateur scene, and I love how there's competition, and I like there being a lot of organizations that's important for fighters to be able to choose. But, yeah, I mean, it's obvious that the most well-known organization is the XFO, so you got to try to fight for them if you're trying to move up, especially to becoming a pro. And that's what I did in my first fight. My first fight was in the XFO, so I've luckily, the 3 fights I've had, I've competed for 3 different organizations, and it's been cool to see how each one operates, because they really are completely different, and they have a different idea of how to run things. Dan's been doing it for a long time, and it'll be a cool show. I think mentally they're in a good spot. They're coming off of a win. They're confident, and I feel like physically, they're none of them have injuries, and all of them are hungry and ready to go.
Beautiful, beautiful. Okay. Let's take a step away from the amateur scene for a second. We've got this Saturday, August 17th, the UFC is having the first fight card and the first showing on the brand new Fox Sports 1 channel, which apparently is going to do a lot of mixed martial arts on it. And it's a stacked card. And when I usually host this show alone, I like to go over a card and give my opinions on who's fighting. Now, for you and I, this is nothing new. For people out there that don't know, Mike Finch and I actually co-hosted a show together at our community college in Round Lake, Grays Lake, at College of Lake County. We had a show called Inside the Cage. And this is something that we've done before. So I want to give a couple fights your direction, get your opinions on them, and let's see if we're butting heads or if we agree on these ones, okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. First things first, I don't want to do all the Facebook fights, but there is one I want to start off with, which is Manny Gamburyan versus Cole Miller. Both guys are on the chopping block. Both guys are studs. Who's winning that fight and why?
Yeah, I mean, I've always liked Manny. He trains. I think he still trains with Ronda Rousey, right? And I'm a big Ronda Rousey fan, obviously. And yeah, I mean, I'm just kind of a Manny fan. Yeah, they're both in a tough spot. And as far as that fight, thinking with my head, probably Cole Miller. I don't think he can tap Manny. Manny's got a solid game, but I feel like he might win a decision there. But yeah, I mean, both guys are on a chopping block, and both guys I don't really see pushing it to the upper echelon of the division or of any of the lighter divisions. But I'm a fan of Manny. I'd like to see him win, but I think I'm going to say Cole Miller decision.
Okay, I agree. Cole Miller will win the fight. Knowing that they're both on a possible chopping block for the UFC, I don't want either to lose. So I hope that it's a war, but I feel like Cole Miller, just being so tall and lanky, if he can use that reach advantage against Manny Gamburyan, I could see a 3-round unanimous decision where he kind of picks Manny apart standing up. If Manny Gamburyan can manage to get past that reach and get his hands on Cole Miller, it's possible that he can try to, suffocate him on the ground, though Cole Miller is no slouch on the ground either. So I give it a unanimous decision to Cole Miller, probably because of the reach advantage and his ability to stay just out of distance from Manny Gamburyan's takedowns and judo.
Yeah, see, I like that because that's our real opinion. If you watch the other prediction shows, if you watch ESPN, if you watch Brian Sansay's predictions, there's always one guy who picks the underdog, or there's always one, they would never have two people pick Cole Miller by decision. So this is actually our opinion, Joey, and I think that is solid.
Of course,
we are unique.
Nobody's paying me to tell you otherwise, guys. Like we're gonna keep it as real as possible, man. All right. My next fight for you, Max Holloway versus Conor McGregor. What do you think?
I don't know a lot about Max Holloway. I know Conor McGregor. I've seen him fight before. He looks really tough. I feel like I've seen two Conor McGregor fights, and so I would just have to lean in the way that I know. I'd lean Conor McGregor. He looks like a tough kid.
Yeah, after watching Conor McGregor's first fight in the UFC and the way he picked apart Marcus Brimage, I have a hard time going against the kid. I like his personality. I like the way he's hyped up his fights, talking about how he's going to steal the show. I was going to get fight of the night. And I like that attitude. Max Holloway, I know he's a talented fighter. I've seen a couple of his fights in the UFC, but I have a feeling that Conor McGregor is going to do like he did in his first fight. He's going to come out swinging. He's going to land some crisp shots early, probably end this fight fast. And if it doesn't end fast in the first round, it's probably going to go down in the second round. I'm going with Conor by knockout sometime second round.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I'd say TKO, but yeah, the kid's tough, and I could see him getting a finish. I'd say let's say TKO round 3. I'll go a little later.
All right. What else do we have on the card? We've got Brad Pickett versus Michael McDonald. That's a good fight. I love me some Michael McDonald. I think that kid is a badass, but Brad Pickett is no slouch. So.
Exactly. Yeah, no, Michael McDonald's tough. I remember I saw a fight of his, I think last year, that I just really felt like he turned a corner. He's explosive and he's a finisher, and that's just really an awesome matchup. I think I'll lean Brad Pickett, but this is a really fun fight. I've been really impressed with both guys, and I'm looking forward to probably a good striking bout. I think it might stay on the feet, and I think Brad Pickett might start finding an edge.
After seeing Michael McDonald knock out Miguel Torres, I will never go against Michael McDonald in my life because I love me some Miguel Torres. So, Michael McDonald, you got my vote of confidence. I think he's going to win this fight, probably by a split decision. I see it being a tough one. I don't think he's going to be able to knock out Brad Pickett, but I think it's going to be a tough fight.
Yeah, no, it really is. They're both really, really technical and explosive. Both of them have shown big KOs and solid. At that weight, you usually don't find guys who can quite generate that much power, and they're both fast and in shape and in peaks of their careers. So I think that might be fight of the night. Actually,
it's definitely got it written all over it. We'll see. All right. I feel like this one's a no-brainer, but I'm going to throw it out there anyways. Joe Lauzon versus Michael Johnson. I got Joe Lauzon. I think he's just going to catch him in some sort of submission early, and Michael Johnson's not going to be able to get his way out of it.
Yeah, Michael Johnson's coming off of 2 losses, and obviously that puts him in a spot where he's going to feel like he needs to win or he's out, and that might really be the case because Joe Lauzon is coming off of a great win over Jamie Varner, if I remember right, and then lost to Jim Miller. So
yep.
He's competing at a really high level in those fights. Those were big fights on main cards that were well viewed, and I feel like Joe Lauzon's just going to get right back to his winning ways. Joe's an awesome competitor, so I would say Joe Lauzon might be able to tap him. I'm gonna say submission in the first or second round.
I have to agree with you. Joe Lauzon submission. I'm gonna go ahead and say that Michael Johnson can make his way out of the first round. I don't see it happening in the second round. Too much Joe Lauzon for him. Like you said, he's been fighting on a different level as far as competition goes. Mm-hmm. Next fight I have for you, making his way back into the UFC, John Howard going against Uriah Hall. Both are beasts. Both are just stand-up, vicious strikers. Who's taking this fight?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough fight. It's a tough fight to call. Obviously, the hype is or was with Uriah Hall. Obviously, the UFC still thinks it is. They were doing a lot trying to hype this fight and kind of show Uriah Hall's video blogs. And I just noticed a lot of Uriah Hall hype from the UFC. And obviously, the kid's exciting. I mean, he had that ridiculous knockout on The Ultimate Fighter and got people's hopes up. I just, I'm well aware of when guys get hyped up that there's always this chance that they might get their game exposed because you have to have that full, well-rounded game. You have to have all that explosive wrestling and good, solid jiu-jitsu that you can defend enough with. And he wasn't at that point before. It's kind of the same thing as when Anthony Pettis came to the UFC and he fought Clay Guida. And everybody's on the Anthony Pettis train, and Anthony Pettis is going to beat him up. He's so much more impressive. But sometimes it doesn't matter who's more impressive. Sometimes it just matters who has the more well-rounded, reliable game. And I hope that he's developed that by now. I think I could easily see him being taken down, by John Howard. That could easily be a move. Even though John Howard, much more of a Muay Thai fighter, he might have the more well-rounded game. So. That's going to be an interesting one to watch. I'm hoping Uriah Hall can do something devastating, but I'm actually going to go with John Howard. I'm going to say a decision.
Ooh, I'm going to go ahead and say Uriah Hall knocks him out. Uriah Hall is a beast. He's a monster, and besides his loss to what's his name, Kelvin. Is that right, Kelvin, for the Ultimate Fighter Championship?
Yeah. I think you got it.
Besides his loss to him, who was a just ridiculously strong wrestler and brilliant kid, props to him. He'll have a future in the UFC. But besides that, he's knocking everybody else out. And everybody else that he knocked out were guys that were strikers that wanted to stand with him. John Howard's going to try to stand with him, and John Howard's going to lose his head. Sorry, John.
Yeah, no, and Uriah Hall has a background. You remember that show that Chuck Norris had? It was like the WCL or something like that, where guys were kicked. But he was doing that. I mean, the kids had a lot of exposure on the feet, and that's solid for him. I just don't know. I don't know how well it's going to translate into the higher stages, on UFC main cards. So good luck to him, man. I hope for a big KO. I just don't rely on it.
All right, we'll see. Next fight for you. We've got Matt Brown versus Mike Pyle. I love both these fighters. I like the way they scrap. I'm personally a fan of both, so I don't want to pick. So can you pick for me?
Sure. And, I think it's a really cool matchup, and I just don't know why they give Matt Brown Mike Pyle at this point. He's, I think, 5 wins in a row, Joey. I really think it's 5 wins in a row Matt Brown's had, which when you have 5 wins in a row, I think even though it's Matt Brown, he's kind of that B-level name, I think he's earned that really high A-list, of guys, and I'm not sure why he's not getting it, So I think he's been on a roll, and I think he might as well continue his role. I say Matt Brown. I say Matt Brown finishes him. I'm going to say Matt Brown by TKO just because he's on fire.
Now, with that being said, I do have to throw this out at you. Mike Pyle has won 4 fights in a row, and he's also won 7 out of his last 8. He's only lost to Rory McDonald. And within those 7 fights he's won, he has beaten Ricardo Almeida, John Holloway, Rick Story, and Josh Neer, all guys who are potential threats. So...
Gotcha. So he's been doing some work too.
Yeah, and I like Josh Neer. Not Josh Neer. I like Matt Brown. I know that he was on a horrible losing streak before this big winning streak, so it's a really cool story. I think both of them are veterans of the UFC that deserve to stick around and deserve big fights. At this point, I think they're the perfect matchup for each other, but I don't want to see either one of them lose. So I'm going to go with a draw. I'm going with a draw, and it's just because something happens and the referees the judges just can't get their shit together.
If you call that one, I'm going to be pretty damn impressed. if they went to a draw, but no, if he's coming off of 4 wins too, then at least let's say the winner of this fight gets a big name. Is that fair?
I agree. They deserve somebody top. I'll give them like top 8. They deserve a top 8 to top 5 somewhere.
If Matt Brown's winning 6 in a row, he had better get somebody top 8.
Yeah, I agree.
Otherwise, this system is broken. Otherwise, it's just who's cooler of a fighter.
Yeah.
You know? It's not about who earns it.
No, you're right.
And it should be. It should be. You know, it should be about who earns it in the division. If you're winning 6 in a row, I damn well hope he's up there.
Let's get to the big boys. We have Alistair Overeem versus Travis Brown. Alistair Overeem getting his first fight back after being knocked out by Bigfoot. I'm gonna be real with you. I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I think Alistair Overeem is a big softy. He looks very imposing. I think his chin has been battle tested and it has failed. I don't think he's going to be able to beat Travis Brown. I think if Travis Brown connects a couple on his chin, he's going to get woozy like he has shown in the past and probably knocked out. I just don't think Alistair Overeem has a heavyweight's chin. I don't think he can take the shots that these guys can throw. I give Travis Brown the knockout in the first round.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, it's certainly not out of the question because obviously Alistair's chin either is not what it once was or just has not been a really solid chin. I mean, he's clearly when you just are knocked out, it kind of puts him in the spot where guys are going to spend. It's the same kind of spot like Anderson's in. Like some people are wondering, well, was it that big of a shot? And I mean, obviously, in Alistair's case, it was a huge shot, you know. And it reminds me of when Chuck Liddell was in that spot where he got KO'd by Rampage, and I was like, well, no, he's not old, you know, he's going to be fine. He came back, and he was just never the same. I don't know if that's what's going to happen with Alistair. I really hope that Alistair comes back full force. And judging by the 20-minute training camp video that I got to watch of him, it does look like that. I don't know if you know of his coach that he flew out from Holland. It's a real big round guy who was the K1 coach. Do you know who I'm talking about? Do you know his name? I
can't think of his name off the top of my head, but I watched that video before I came into the station today, so I know who you're talking about. His name is not in my mind right now.
That's something perfect for him to have, because what that guy there is doing, and basically what he was saying was, even though he gives kind of off-the-wall advice, and even though he's all these different things, he's a motivator. That guy is putting Alistair through some serious training. It's very clear that Alistair is in awesome shape, way lower body fat than we've seen before, and doesn't look so bloated. Looks like much more lean, athletic Alistair. And I think that might come up key on Saturday. I think Alistair Overeem is in the final kind of stretch here at the top of the heavyweight division, and I think he comes out and shines. I hope that he's fast enough to deal with Travis Brown. Is the only problem here. It could very easily be that Travis Brown's young athletic speed could lead to the end for Alistair, because if he puts a good combination together, is getting there first, and Alistair's doing his hands down, chin up, I'm a better striker than you and I know it stuff, he could get caught again. I don't know if he's going to do that twice in a row. And it's going to be a little preview for me, because I kind of feel like Anderson's in a similar spot where he just got embarrassed because he was messing around and got knocked out. Same thing happened to Alistair. So I'm really excited to see how he comes back. And I'm optimistic, Joey. I'm going to say Alistair Overeem TKOs Travis Brown in the second round.
I love it. I love the fact you don't agree with me on this one, because I know that after this Saturday I can talk some trash to you. All right. We're running low on time, unfortunately, so I want to try to get through this last one kind of quicker. We've got the headliner, Chael Sonnen versus Mauricio Shogun Rua. I know that Chael Sonnen's been fighting at 185, and he's going up to 205 for this fight, and people say that weight difference makes all the difference, because Chael Sonnen hasn't won much at 205 in his career. But still, I think Mauricio Shogun Rua has showed in his past he doesn't have it in the tank to go into deep waters with fighters, and I think Chael Sonnen is the perfect guy to take him there. So unless Mauricio has been training heavily on takedown defense, I think it's going to be a 3-round unanimous decision for Chael Sonnen.
Yeah, and there's a few X factors for me, because obviously when they matched up, I thought, Chael Sonnen, excellent takedowns, going to try to get on top of you and win a decision or submit you. Mauricio Shogun, who had good kickboxing but no wrestling. He always gets taken down. Even by Alexander Gustafsson could take him down easy. So I just thought, man, what a bad matchup for Shogun. That's too bad. But now that I think about it more, Chael's in this crazy spot mentally. I don't know if he's cashing out at this point. I don't know what to expect from Chael. Chael's a little older. He's lost in his title fights. I mean, is he just trying to collect a couple big paychecks, talking smack about a few Brazilians and on his way out? Or did he train his ass off and he's ready to get back in the title picture with a win? I don't know. It kind of matters with the mental state of both of these guys. Shogun's such a veteran. I don't know how hard he trained his wrestling. So I'm gonna say that Chael outworks him, out-wrestles him. I'm really hopeful that Shogun trained right down the street from my Uncle David in Huntington Beach, California, at the gym that I trained at, Kings MMA. So, I'm rooting for Shogun. I'm hoping for him, but I'm going to have to say Chael. Let's just say Chael decision.
Yeah. Like I said before, I agree. Chael Sonnen, too many takedowns. Wrestling's too good. Shogun's proven he's weak against good wrestlers. So I guess we're going to have to agree on that one. But anyways, that's our opinion on the Fox Sports 1 fight card coming on this Saturday. I'm glad you guys got a chance to listen. Come and tune in. This is The Cage. Finch, before you get out, if people want to get in contact with you or know more about you, how can they reach you online and all that good stuff?
Facebook.com/Mike2Finch. I have people, if you ever want a commentary team, me and Joey are awesome. I'll put an ad out for us. But yeah, no, go ahead and add me on Facebook. Facebook.com/Mike2Finch, and you can check me and Joey out there. And and if you want to see us, come catch us at some local events. We'll be at the XFO event Saturday, September 21st. I don't know if me and Joey will be doing commentary, but I will certainly be there helping out the team. And just catch us at some local events, Hidden Talent in November or Battle of the Borders in October.
Awesome. That's my buddy Mike Finch. Go check him out. Like he said, on Facebook. If you want to find me, I'm on Twitter at TheRealJoeSumo. That's Twitter. Once again, I'm at TheRealJoeSumo. Come talk shit with me. Talk mixed martial arts. We do this every week, folks. Every Thursday, 12 o'clock. This is The Cage. Thanks for tuning in.
There's only one radio station that connects you to DePaul University, Chicago, and the world.
Hey, you in my class? I am today.
It's Radio DePaul, Chicago's college connection.
I said it must be, 'cause in the